First year in, and my first Halloween trip to Silent Hill. First thing we're going to be taking a look at here is some attention to detail that escaped my notice. As soon as you use the 3 keys for the eclipse and go through this door, well, night falls quickly in Silent Hill. There was, however, something I didn't ever think to try, and that is to go back. I'm not sure there's really any actual reason to do this, but the thing that kind of impresses me is that they did leave this area accessible. They didn't just lock the door behind you or anything. And what that means is that they went back to all of the early game areas, and they applied the darkness to it. So, sure, overall it's kind of a minor thing, but it's a neat little attention to detail. I think it's kind of cool that they left this in and actually did this. Of course, it's not free from danger. It is still populated with monsters. But, for example, going back here to the Cafe 5-2, they actually gave it a nighttime look. You can use the flashlight in here, or it gets really dark. It's dark outside the windows, you can see that. It's just kind of a neat little detail. I never realized that they actually did this. And speaking of things escaping my notice, how about a fairly large vehicle? So with that out of the way, my actual reason for coming back here was something near Midwich Elementary that I had missed. After you use the keys to the eclipse, that's where you're supposed to go, is Midwich Elementary, and with all the groaners and air screamers chasing you, it can be tempting to just dive right inside, try and get away from all that. But if you do, you miss out on this. Just a little bit past the entrance to Midwich Elementary, there's a school bus, and you can actually board it. And man, does it look creepy in here. There's some stuff to be gotten, though, in here. A couple of health drinks, for example. There's also a save point in here, though it's kind of an oddly placed one. I mean, the save point in Midwich School's infirmary is very close by, so I'm not really sure why you'd use this one over that one, but it's an option. But man, this place is just so creepy. The broken windows, the darkness outside, and just the whole concept of this abandoned, beat-up school bus. Very creepy. A little bit of credit where it's due. I never knew this place existed until I watched Agent JR's LP of Silent Hill 1, so my thanks for that. It's still there a little later, too. Seriously, how did I never notice this thing, even in broad daylight? After you're finished at the school, you can actually come and visit the school bus during the daytime as well. So, really, somehow, I just never noticed this big honkin' school bus out here. They do apply the light filter over it when you come and visit during the daytime. So again, nice attention to detail, and it makes the place at least a little less creepy. Though, there is just something still very subtly unsettling about the whole beat-up abandoned school bus, and I just love that subtle, unsettling feeling. I love that. And so we merrily progress through the game. Silent Hill not weird enough for you yet? Well, how about this? So once you get to Lakeside Amusement Park, if you have the red liquid, you can save Sybil. Or if you get close enough to a larval stalker, you can use it there too. And then things just get weird. The game acts like you used it on Sybil. Except, Harry, what you doing? Harry, where are you going? Harry! and jazz hands.
Sybil. Wake up. Snap out of it. Sybil.
Harry, what happened?
I don't think Harry knows either.
Shh. Don't talk. I'll take care of you.
And then
Harry,
things get back to normal.
Why did they take your
But,
daughter?
yeah, so that's a thing.
Why her?
And finally, something dealing with the final boss that I'd been told about, but I never really thought to try it, so let's give it a bash. So one last thing to show from Silent Hill 1, and that's an odd little failsafe that was programmed into the final boss. No matter if you're fighting the Incubator or the Incubus, you can't get close enough to either of them to hit them with melee combat. The Incubator has a force field around her, and the Incubus just flies well above where you could strike with any melee weapons. So, you have to shoot them. So, what happens if you go into the final boss fight with no ammo? Well, step 1, drain all the ammo. There, finally! Yeah, that's what I get for hoarding everything and preferring melee combat. Anyway, we have no bullets, so let's go. Also gonna see if I figured out how to dodge the lightning. So we've seen this in the actual LP, so let's get right to it. So we're fighting Incubus, but I don't have any ammo whatsoever. Well, for a minute I thought I had this, but not quite. Basically from here, all you have to do is survive 2 volleys of the boss's attacks. So with that done, yeah, the boss pretty much just self-destructs. Basically, it's like the boss is just saying, wow, you got all the way here with no ammo left? Okay, I guess I'll go easy on you. Enjoy your ending, you've earned it. And so from Silent Hill 1 we move directly to Silent Hill 2. Thoughts of the failsafe that was put on the boss in Silent Hill 1 got me to thinking. The same could be said for Maria/Mary from the end of the second game. She flies well out of the range of any melee attacks. So, what happens if you go into that boss fight without ammo? Well, once again, we know what that means. It's okay, James. I don't think they can hurt you anymore. Geez, that was worse than last time. Anyway, now that we're completely free of ammo, up we go. And we already saw this in the actual LP. So, once again, just start running. At this point, it's pretty much the exact same as dealing with the Silent Hill 1 bosses. All you have to do is dodge 2 full volleys of attacks. And so long as you just keep running, basically anything that Maria/Mary can throw at you is a lot easier to dodge than anything Incubator or Incubus could use. And there we go. Complete and total non-issue. I'm not sure which is weirder. The fact that the programmers actually thought to do this if you didn't have any ammo, or the fact that for 2 games in a row, they decided to make final bosses that required a failsafe like this. Either way, kinda weird.
James.
Hassan Chop!
James.
As far as more straightforward things go, that was the only thing in Silent Hill 2 I could think of to revisit. But there was something else I had heard about. Silent Hill 2 also had a release on the original Xbox. What does that mean for us? Well, the Xbox 360 has backwards compatibility, of a sort. It's not always the most reliable thing, though. One of the most commonly noted backwards compatibility issues with the Xbox version of Silent Hill 2 is that sometimes certain textures just suddenly refuse to load. I'm pretty sure this isn't right, for example. This tends to happen with more frequency if you play for an extended period of time. So, for example, if you're going for a no-saves run of the game, be prepared to see this sort of thing a lot. Alternatively, you could just get the wrong texture loading altogether. Why is this building made of mailing envelopes? Oh hey, everything looks normal again. I guess the problem fixed itself. That's very convenient, very nice, and, never mind. The texture glitches, to be fair, they're very inconsistent. Like the first time I tried doing this, I didn't encounter this at all. But boy, when it hits, you'll definitely notice it. It's easy enough to fix, though. If you start having these problems, just look for a place to save the game, go back to the Xbox dashboard, and restart the game. But what's the fun in that? Texture glitches aren't the only problem, though. Time for something even sillier. So here's a kind of constant glitch that just never goes away. Yay, we have the flashlight! Wonderful, everyone loves the flashlight. But not only that, we've got a flashlight that burns on both ends. Yeah. Even theoretically, if you were to somehow put a second light on your flashlight that lit behind you, there's kind of a big meaty wall of James Sunderland in the way. It shouldn't be doing that. And yet it does, for on the fateful day that James picked up that flashlight, he became Lighthouse Man! Lighthouse Man, away! This double-barreled flashlight, it can cause some odd effects sometimes. For example, when you encounter Pyramid Head here at the apartments just beyond this gate, when you're not looking at him, and thus he's in the darkness, he's supposed to be highlighted with this red aura of doom. Now, though, he's just in a very well-lit darkness, apparently. In learning about most of these glitches, I'd like to thank The Horror Is Alive. It's a survival horror fan site that can be found at the-horror.com. They had a featured article there about the backwards compatibility glitches I showed here, as well as a nice gallery of images that shows just how bad it can get. They also mentioned another silly glitch shown here that, sadly, I could never seem to trigger. The deal is, sometimes the game has trouble loading the right background image for close-up views. Here, for example, instead of the proper grandfather clock background, the hands appear on the wall etching showing where the hands are supposed to be pointing. I've heard of it happening in other places too, such as a close-up of elevator buttons instead showing the shower floor drain from Brookhaven Hospital. So that's pretty weird. In Secret of Mana, there was a question that came up involving a glitch that I pulled off in the actual LP, and how that affects a key mechanic of the final battle in the game. It's something I never really thought to try out, so let's see what happens. So as we revisit Secret of Mana, it's all about dealing with the Mana Beast. The question came up as to what happens if you use Mana Magic on the level 9 sword, the Mana Sword that you obtain if you forge in the glitched 9th Sword Orb. A good question, so let's find out. First though, I am going to let the Mana Beast approach and be within the range of my attacks, because there is something else that I kinda want to cover. I was a bit mistaken about something in the actual LP. I'd mentioned that it was possible to defeat the Mana Beast without using Mana Magic. It may still be possible, but it's nowhere near as reliable of an option as I thought it was. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, come on up. Normal attacks do 0 damage. If you're lucky enough to get a critical like that, you can do 200 to 300 damage, but it's nowhere near as reliable as I thought it was. Normally, you're just gonna get 0. So, let's use Mana Magic. One theory was that this would confuse the sword and make it loop back around to the power of the Rusty Sword. So, let's see what happens. Magical cutscene flash! We've revived the Mana Sword. And it functions as normal. However, it seems like Mana Magic is actually a glorified data flag rather than a damage boost. The reason I say this, I had a previous save file that I was using for testing purposes while I was researching this. On that save file, I was a good 30 levels lower than I am here. In that save file, once I used Mana Magic, this is how much damage I was doing despite being 30 levels lower and only having the level 8 sword, the Dragon Buster. The Mana Sword is about a good 100 attack points higher, and I'm not noticing a benefit here. So that's kind of odd. One other thing I can point out here. Using a charged up attack, this also doesn't do any extra damage. So yeah, it's a glorified data flag. Is Mana Magic equipped? Yes, no. If so, set damage to a range of about 500 to 550 damage. It seems like it just ignores any resistances that the enemy might have in place. If I could test it against other enemies, we could really see if this is what's going on. But the Mana Beast is the only one you ever have access to once you have Mana Magic as something you can cast. But here we have something odd. Once Mana Magic wears off, if you have the 9th Sword Orb, Mana Sword, it just completely vanishes and you are completely unarmed. Now, here's where this gets really weird. You can still cast Mana Magic on Valor, but it won't actually do anything. Normally, if Valor is equipped with any weapon other than the Mana Sword, you cannot target him with Mana Magic, but for some reason, if he's completely unarmed like this, you can. But just proof of concept, once you get into range. Even though the Mana Sword was supposedly revived, we're not doing any damage. The way to fix this, you have to equip a different weapon, then equip the Mana Sword again and it's back, but you will have to recast Mana Magic. This doesn't happen if you do that with the Dragon Buster, or I would assume any of the other sword levels that you can normally have in the game without using the glitched Sword Orb. And then it's just back to business as usual. So, that's kinda weird. Mode 7!